After this video, you will understand more about stem changing and irregular yo verbs. Please make sure that this notes page is put into Notability. You will want to highlight information in different colors to help you better understand the concepts that we're going to cover here. I have typed everything that you will fill in all caps and highlighted it yellow to help make things easier for you. You do not need to highlight all of the blanks yellow like I did. Stem-changing verbs in Spanish are irregular. A stem-changing verb will have letters in the stem of the verb that will change. Let's take a look at one and see what this means. The verb we are going to look at is comenzar. You will want to highlight the stem of this verb yellow, that is comenz, C-O-M-E-N-Z, and the ending of the verb green. The ending is the AR. So we have identified the stem as comenz and the ending as AR. Some of our stems have two vowels in the stem. When there is more than one vowel in the stem, the second vowel is the one that will change. So in the case of comenzar, once again meaning to start or to begin, the E is the second vowel in the stem, meaning that the E will be the letter that will change. Let's take a look at some common changes that occur in stem-changing verbs. Feel free to pause this video at any time if you need to have more time to take notes. Oftentimes E will change to IE. An O in the stem will change to a UE. A U in the stem will change to a UE. An E in the stem will change to an I. The best way to learn this information is to study and memorize. But the good news is, it's easy and fun. Let's take a look at the first concept we're going to look at today, called boot verbs. In this 6-box conjugating chart, we are going to identify the boot. The boot is the first person singular, second person singular, and third person singular conjugation, as well as the third person plural conjugation. Here's a separate example of what I mean by the boot. The boot means that the letters will change inside the boot. So if you visualize a boot over your conjugating chart, the letters will change in the stem inside the boot, but remain the same outside. So in the case of this verb poder, meaning to be able to, you can see the UE inside the boot. So the O changed to a UE inside the boot, but nothing happened on the outside of the boot. So once again, what that means is for stem-changing boot verbs, the change will occur in the boot, and no change happens outside of the boot. If we take a look at the verb costar, which means to cost, we can see that it's cuesto, cuestas, cuesta. Costamos, costáis, and cuestan. I have highlighted the UEs in the first, second, and third person singular and third person plural because they have changed inside the boot. So the purpose of a stem changer is that your O, or your changing letter in your stem, will change to a different letter. We can say that costar is called an O to UE stem-changing boot verb. The next one that we're going to learn about is called high-top verbs. For high-top verbs, the change is going to occur in the second person singular, third person singular, and third person plural conjugation. And finally, we also have go verbs. Go verbs are when the first person singular ending or first person singular conjugation ends in the letters go, but there was no G in the original stem of the verb. Let's take a look at an example. The verb tener, meaning to have, is an E to IE stem changing high top go verb. Let's break that down. In the first person singular, tener goes to tengo. It's a go verb because there's not a G in the original stem of tener, but when you conjugate it, a G magically appears. It's a high top verb because if you can imagine a high top shoe up next to the conjugating chart, it would look a lot like this. The difference between a high top verb and a boot verb are that a boot verb includes the first person singular having a stem change, and a high top verb does not. So once again, where tener is a high top verb, in my second person singular or to conjugation, the E changes to an IE. In my third person singular or the shy box, él, ella, and usted, the E changes to an IE. And finally, in my third person singular conjugation, the ellos, ellas, and ustedes box, the E changes to an IE. No change occurs outside of the stem. In your first person plural and your second person plural box. So once again, take a look. There's no change happening with the E in your first person plural and no change happening with the E in your second person plural. Please make sure that you have written on your notes that tener is an E to IE, stem changing, high top, go verb. Okay, we have learned a lot. Yes, a lot is 2 words. And honestly, I know you don't want to write extra, so let's use some abbreviations. From now on, the abbreviation SC stands for stem changing, BT stands for boot, HT stands for high top, and go is go. Once again, what about those verbs that have 2 vowels in the stem? We looked at the example of comenzar earlier. Let's take a look at the verb querer. Querer has both a U and an E in the stem, and querer means to want. Stop for a moment and think, which of these letters is going to be your stem changer? If you said that the E will change, you're correct. Querer is what we call an E to IE stem changing boot verb. Let's see what it looks like conjugated. Querer is a boot verb because the change happens inside the boot. If we view this as the conjugation box as a boot. So our first person singular is quiero. The E has changed to an IE. Our second person singular is quieres. The E has changed to an IE. Our third person singular is quiere. The E has changed to an IE. Our third person plural is quieren, and the E has changed to an IE. Outside of the boot, we have queremos and queráis. There is no stem change happening because these 2 are outside of the boot. In conclusion, this has been a lesson on stem changing verbs. Hopefully it has been a helpful resource. Please now take a moment to make sure your notes are completely filled out and show those to Mrs. Jones.